Going to call this meeting of the Heritage Committee to order at 4:32. And item number 2 is the appointment of a new chair.
Hello, I'm Haley Lehman, your committee coordinator. I am going to call for nomination of chair. Does anyone have a nomination? Lindsay, one moment.
We would like to nominate Paul.
Paul, do you accept Lindsay's nomination?
I really don't want to be the chair. I don't think I can dedicate enough time to being a proper chair.
Okay. So you deny the nomination?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Lindsay.
So I would like to call to the committee for another nomination for chair. Judy, you have a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Lindsay Nealon for chair. Sorry.
Lindsay, do you accept the nomination?
Isn't that interesting?
Do you want to press your mic? No, that's not something we traditionally do.
Will you stay vice chair?
I would stay vice chair, yes. Yes, I would stay vice chair.
Vice chair covers when I can't come, right? Because there's a few I can't.
Lindsay, do you accept the nomination for chair? Oh, yes.
Sure, I will accept the nomination for chair. Thanks, Judy.
Okay, so now we are gonna vote on this. One moment.
Could we have a show of hands on this vote? All in favor?
Let me just have an overview. Okay, perfect. You're gonna stay as vice chair. So Lindsay and Paul, you guys can change chairs. I will switch your mics.
Talked about it yesterday, too. Sneaky lady. All right. Perfect.
It just takes a moment to switch the microphones around. Oh, no, you don't. Switch over, yep.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. We're going to go on to number 3, adoption of the agenda. There's a recommendation that the agenda for the Municipal Heritage Committee dated February 18th, 2025 be approved as circulated and amended.
I'm just gonna.
Perfect. Judy says. Yeah, by Judy. Can I have a seconded by Randy? We're just waiting on a vote for all in favor. No worries. Paul's didn't come up.
Everyone did vote, so you can, it's good, it's carried.
Perfect, so those are approved. I'm going on to number 4 on the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Is there anything? Nope, not at this time. Move on to number 6, the minutes. We're gonna approve the minutes. So recommendation that the minutes of the Municipal Heritage Committee meeting dated November 12th, 2024 be approved as circulated. Paul, seconded by Richard. We'll do an all in favor. Or vote on the console. Thanks, guys.
So, you guys will see. Okay.
Yep, motion carried. Great. Next part is deputations. Any deputations? None today. Moving on to working group reports. We'll start with Paul, talking about the Built Heritage Awards Working Group update.
I think we're down to, we've decided, my group is myself. We're going to go recognize 2 properties if we're able to, 550 Wagner Street and 325 McPherson Street in West Gravenhurst. Both buildings were redone and in keeping an older look or style. And we are ready to move on to the next phase.
What phase is that? Oh, absolutely.
You don't need to. Thanks. I'll just take the opportunity to note that once the work plan is approved, then the next task will be to assign members to each of the working groups. So it may be appropriate to wait until and see if there's any other members added to the working group, which wouldn't be before the next meeting. So that can be put on hold if that's if committee's agreeable at this time.
Does that work, Paul?
Yes, that's fine.
Press it again.
Yes, that's fine with me, Angela. Wait until we get a new working group.
Great. Any other updates, Paul?
No.
Nope. Okay, great. Yes, Randy.
just a question, probably for Angela, does that have to go to council? Or is it just something that the committee can move forward on by itself? Or is it a recommendation?
Thank you for that question. If I understand, you're inquiring if council has to approve the properties that get recognized. No, council would approve the minutes. So I guess if there's a concern at that time, then that could be raised. But council would approve the Heritage Committee minutes. Doesn't need to directly approve the properties that are recognized.
Any other questions for Paul? Great, we'll move on to Glenn. He's going to talk about the Properties of Interest Working Group.
Okay. So I have some things here, and I'm just wondering, should I go through this stuff, or should we be waiting for the working plan to be approved? From what I heard you say was that we're not going to discuss whether the properties that Built Heritage has in mind until the working plan is approved. Should we wait as well?
I think it's appropriate for you to talk about what the working group is planning on doing and what's happened.
Okay.
It's just, I think the situation with Built Heritage Awards is a little bit different, being that there's only currently one member. So I think it's appropriate to discuss the properties of interest
Okay.
findings. Thank you.
The first thing that I have on my list is a changed name for our group. And just because things have changed in the province, things have changed all over the place with respect to properties of interest, we thought that we'd change the name to Heritage Recognition Working Group. And working with carefully and with the signage people, that we are now not just designating properties, although that's still on the table. We're honoring the properties and recognizing their heritage. So we thought that that our group could possibly change the name from Properties of Interest to Heritage Recognition Working Group. Now, do I need a motion to do that?
No, a motion isn't needed. And just, again, the working groups won't be established until the work plan's approved. So talking about this now is perfect timing, because then we can prepare draft resolutions for the various working groups. So that would be noted when Haley and I are looking at that for the next meeting.
Okay. Is that something also that has to be approved by council? The change name?
So council approves the work plan. And as long as any actions taken by the Heritage Committee fall within the work plan for 2025, then it's not something, it doesn't need specific council approval.
Okay. Thanks. Some of the tasks that we are working on, there is a large heritage plaque at Gull Lake Park that nobody can see, basically. And what we would like to do is like to take that off the fence where it is right now and then put it on the building just before the staircase, before you go down to the beach, and make it a little bit more of a visible plaque. No questions there, I don't think. We talked about the website, which is not currently considerate of heritage. And there's a lot of things that can be done on the website, on the town's website, with respect to heritage, and one of them may be creating a pamphlet that describes what the heritage sites are all about. in conjunction with the signage work group, QR codes on the website that would allow people to go to, say, a description of any one particular site, or a code maybe offering that you donate some money to help the Heritage Committee, or if a GoFundMe type of campaign can be put in place. I don't know whether that's possible or not, but those are some of the things that we have been talking about, including creating a map of all of the heritage sites in the area. And it just might be that it's an address on the map, and you click on it, and it punches up a description, and maybe even goes to a description that somebody has narrated for that particular site. And again, working closely with the signage people and thinking about those types of things. And the last thing that we talked about recently was the Doors Open campaign. I know it's coming up again at the end of the agenda here with respect to the Doors Open campaign, and we felt that it's, first of all, too expensive. Secondly, it takes a huge amount of organization with whoever it is that you're going to be working with. And I think that in our case, I mean, we don't even have a line item budget to work from, but secondly, I think that we should just let it go, and if we're able to do it next year, we'll get involved.
I think Judy had something she wanted to share.
Yes, I did. I went on the town website today and looked to see whether or not heritage was sort of prominently featured in any way. And when I actually went to the town of Gravenhurst website and like Googled it, I discovered that underneath the town website, the things that are mentioned, there are sort of key headings: employment, contact directory, report a problem, town hall and council, bylaws and policies, and no mention of heritage whatsoever. So right off the bat, to support what Glenn has just said, there seems to be a sort of an information gap there with regard to heritage. I think we should be there. But if you actually then search the town of Gravenhurst website for heritage, you get, I think, a massive list. It was, I think, 100 and some odd things, including parking lots. What else did I get? I got all sorts of things. I got parking lots, and I got buildings. I got parks. I got trails. I got everything imaginable, not necessarily related to heritage. Now, that's because I've obviously, used the town website and Googled or asked it to provide heritage information to me. If I were a person arriving in the town, I would be befuddled, I think, if I put heritage in the search box on the town website, because I would be getting everything from, a whole variety of parks, a variety of parking lots, of trails, of boat launches, none of which are necessarily, although could be, some of which are necessarily heritage. On top of that, there were pictures linked to the cemeteries, the same picture to every cemetery notation, and it was not a cemetery in Gravenhurst. It was just a random picture of a cemetery, which I thought, again, if I were a person coming to town and were interested in cemeteries as a heritage place to look at things, I would be a little bit, again, upset. 25 parking lots were given their own space under heritage. Outdoor rinks, all sorts of things. But heritage designation per se, or heritage buildings, did not necessarily even pull up all of the heritage sites that are designated. And in fact, when I Googled, or searched, for heritage on the town website, there were a number of previously designated heritage locations and buildings that did not come up in the search. So that caused me some concern. I would like to know why that would be happening. I don't think it's my computer. I simply pulled up the town website and then in the search box put the word heritage and got, as I say, 25 parking lots, among other things.
I can speak to this a little bit. I'm not in the economic development department who runs the marketing department does run the website, but it is how the search engine populates. It takes keywords. So it's not, we don't build it out like that. So when you're getting heritage, you're getting it from tons of documents that are on the website. That doesn't mean we can't improve our page. We are responsible to update our page and information you would like. We can always do that. And if there's something you're seeing on the website that you have a recommendation for, we can definitely pass it along to the marketing specialist. But each department owns a different part on the website. So if you're getting something where you're seeing a heritage parking lot, parking lot comes up, that has been pulled because there's keywords maybe in that bylaw or something that is there that has populated it. We can't change the search engine the way you search it, but we can definitely take any kind of recommendation and pass it along if you're seeing information that's incorrect or photos. Angela might be able to speak to it even better, but just so you know, it is departmental. So we would have to look at it. We can improve our Heritage Committee page, but as for other pages, there would be other approvals, and we just need to talk to everyone about their information.
I'll just add to that a little bit. Thanks for the feedback. We're always trying to improve communications and looking for ways, if the website can be more friendly, then obviously we want to know about it. I think I would point out that most of the heritage information, there's two areas. One of it is under the Municipal Heritage Committee. There is in fact a map there of all of the designated properties. Colin did a lot of work on that. He worked with a member of the planning team and prepared that map. And there's also, there is information there, but as Haley's indicated, we can certainly update that depending on what the committee's looking for. So we can keep that in mind, and I would suggest that it be maybe just keep this discussion in mind when we move on to the work plan portion of the meeting.
Glenn, did you want to finish?
Yeah. So it's obvious that some improvements have to be made. In this era of technology, when people travel, it seems to me that they go to the websites of the different places that they travel. And if they're interested in heritage buildings or whatever it may be, and we have one of the most famous ones in the Bethune House right here in town, we get tourists by the busloads to come to that particular facility. So I think that it has to be a situation where we do improve all of the information that is on our website, and therefore, how do we do that? And again, it can come up in the discussion can come up in the working plan part. But I mean, as a committee, we don't want to have to send notes to marketing. Okay, really, we want to sit down with marketing and tell them what should be on the website for heritage, basically. Okay, now if they don't agree with that, are we out in the cold? Does council have to prove our commitment to the website? There's so many questions surrounding what has to be done to at least put us, pardon the pun, on the map.
I think it's great that you have those ideas and that we'll bring those forward and something that we can share with council too, especially with like a list of things. Did you want to add to that?
No, I can wait for the work plan to come along.
Yeah, I'm thinking those are some great ideas that we can put in that work plan, and then we can recommend that for council, and maybe we can work with, is it Mike? Mike who's
So I think, to answer your question, one of the options would be to have the appropriate staff member come to a meeting, to a future meeting. But I think it is the town's website. This committee is a committee of council. And so again, there already is a page about the Heritage Committee on the town's website. I would just reiterate, happy to, any improvements that can be made, certainly want to bring those forward. And I think that as long as everybody's working in the spirit of cooperation to improve things, then obviously that's something that we would want to move forward with. Oh, and perhaps, sorry, maybe I can just note, I would just note that fundraising through the town's website would not be appropriate or something that could happen, just to be clear.
Something that came up.
Yep.
Great, thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to share with the properties of interest? No? All right, we're going to go on to Richard Tatley. He's going to talk about interpretive signs and plaques working group.
Working now? Madam Chair, the Interpretive Signs and Plaques Working Group has not had a formal meeting, and in the last while, the weather is partly something to do with that. But my understanding was that our working group is simply waiting to see if the committee as a whole was in agreement with the package we put together as to what we think the criteria for plaques should be. In other words, what should we be keeping in mind if we want to put up a plaque? In other words, what purposes will they serve, and so on and so forth? How appropriate are they, and so on and so forth? And thanks to Judy, we have some proposed criteria which has been offered to the to the committee here. And I think my impression is that we're in effect waiting to see what the committee's verdict is. Are they satisfied with the criteria that Judy has provided, or do you wish to make changes to them, or what's the or will you approve them, or what?
Sounds great. So I think what we'll do is we are going to keep that for the working plan, for the work plan. Does that make sense? Oh, we're going to put it into unfinished business. Okay, if there's nothing else you wanted to share, Richard?
I think that's about it, unless Judy has anything to add.
No? Okay, thank you. So there. Can we get an answer to our question? Sounds like we're going to, which is great. Yes. So any other reports to share? Nope. Great. Unfinished business. It's going to be Angela speaking about interpretive signs working group criteria.
Thank you. Haley's just going to share on the screen the criteria that Richard referred to. And committee will recall that at the November meeting, Judy did present this list of criteria. And it was reviewed by the committee at that time, and there were some minor changes that were suggested, including using the word signage throughout for consistency. You may recall that previously there was interchangeably used plaques and signs. So signage is now used consistently. And in section 5, originally the wording had been requiring QR codes, and it's now, I don't know if you can scroll down, Haley, just a little bit. Thanks. It's now striving to have QR codes included. The concerns that were raised were both vandalism and weathering, so that's why the wording was changed to striving to have the QR codes put in. I think we just mentioned about having the QR codes on the website as well. That's excellent. That sort of bypasses the concern about the vandalism. And so this document that's on the screen does reflect the changes that were discussed at the November meeting. So if committee agrees, then it will form the template for a working group.
There any questions for Angela?
Everyone agrees, this is just a part of the process, we don't need a motion.
Great.
Unless there's something that wants to change or people have different feelings.
Okay. Are there any suggestions or changes wanted? Oh, Richard?
If this is working, Madam Chair, if this is appropriate, may I propose a motion that the criteria presented here as revised be accepted by the group, and so that our working group can get busy? Is that, is that a reasonable motion?
Yeah.
it
I'm hearing we
appropriate?
don't need a motion. If there's no questions or objections, we just go ahead with it and it will be put forward with the next working group. So, yeah.
Okay,
all good.
should there be a vote on it, or is that necessary?
They're saying it's not necessary. It's good to go. It was great.
Whatever.
Well done.
All right then, thank you.
Is there anything else we want to share on that? No? Okay, no other questions? Great. We're going to go on to new business. Oh, did I go too far?
Just saying, you read each one, so other reports.
I did other reports. Yeah, and then we went to unfinished business, right? And then on to new business? Is that the one? Yeah. Okay, so it's the CHO membership and ACO membership. Angela?
Thank you. So this item is about committee deciding whether to pay membership fees to be affiliated with two provincial organizations, Community Heritage Ontario and the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario. So Community Heritage Ontario, or CHO, they are a provincial umbrella organization and advisory body for municipal heritage committees. I would suggest it's important that MHC be a paying member of CHO. The annual fee is currently $75. The Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, or ACO, it's a provincial organization described on their website. I'll just quote from their website: through education and advocacy to encourage the conservation and reuse of structures, districts, and landscapes of architectural, historic, and cultural significance to inspire and benefit Ontarians. So there are local branches throughout the province, including the Muskoka ACO branch. The annual membership fee for a municipal heritage organization is $50. Being part of ACO is voluntary. It's solely a decision of the committee. And I'll just add one more thing. A resolution has been prepared, and it's been drafted to essentially make this what I would call a standing item, so that committee doesn't have to vote on these expenditures each year. It would automatically be done by staff at the beginning of each year if committee is satisfied that it's appropriate to continue the membership with both of these organizations. And just before you go to that point, there's just the only other thing I would ask, there is a quarterly newsletter that's emailed by Community Heritage Ontario, and I do receive that email and forward it by email to all members, but if anyone would like it emailed directly to them, just let me know and I will add your name to the CHO list.
Are there any questions for Angela? Glenn?
I in no way am I voting against paying the memberships. I think we should be along to those organizations. But the last time that I was talking to somebody about the CHO, it was an organization in relative disarray. And I'm just wondering, is there any information on that right now and how that's going?
I would suggest that the CHO was going through a transition period. And so I think that part of the challenge with the Heritage Conference is last year was a transition period for CHO. So I think that they do have new board members and are working through that phase. So I suspect that some of the previously identified issues are resolved.
Are there any other questions for Angela? Great. So we have a motion. So be it resolved that the Municipal Heritage Committee renews the CHO membership and ACO membership for the duration of the term. Moved by Judy, seconded by Glenn. And then we'll, all in favor? We'll vote on our Richard, did it work for you? No worries.
Oh, we got it.
There it went. Perfect. Great, so that motion is carried. Did you have a question, Richard?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'm just wondering who's going to actually pay these fees? Will we have to pass the hat around to the members here to cover the costs, or what?
That comes out of our budget, right? Yeah, from council. Absolutely. All right, there's another piece under our new business. It's Heritage Register Review. And that will be, that's Angela again. Great. No worries.
Haley, could I trouble you to put that up on the screen as well? Thank you. At the last meeting, it was pointed out correctly that the register that's currently on the website is out of date and needed to be updated. So that is essentially what this document is. It's the updated version of the register, removing properties that have been removed from the register. So I could specifically go through the changes, but I think that you'll find really there's two properties, the Vincent Fry residence as well as the Severn River Inn, and the clerk's office, which was a building, not a property, which have been removed from this list. Happy to take any questions. It is council that approves the register, but before I would take a report forward to council for consideration, it would, they would be seeking assurance that the Heritage Committee was in support of the register, of the revised information that was being brought forward to them. If committee approves this, there will be a report and along with the updated register going to council on Tuesday, March the 18th. Councillor Jorgensen would answer any questions that council would have at that time. And then once it's approved by council, the updated version would be placed on the website. So thanks to committee for bringing that item forward so that it can be updated properly, and happy to answer any questions.
Judy's got a question. Oh, no. Yep, hit it again. There it is.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, I might like to suggest a couple of changes to the way in which the register describes or names the properties that are listed here. For example, at one time, we had talked about removing names that were associated with only a particular period in time and reverting to the historical name for a property. So for example, Rosehurst versus Rosehurst/Garner Lodge, getting rid of Garner Lodge. In the case of, go over here, Lafreniere House has a slash for Blainecroft. It was called Blainecroft only at a time when a particular family owned it fairly recently. But it, you know, they don't own it anymore. And I don't think that it's the historical name for that property. It's Lafreniere House. The same thing with Albert Hill Building. You should get rid of Gadsby's. And we would probably get rid of Westover's Lorenz on the Maury Building and leave it at Maury McJanet. The Lindsell House, Lindsell Finch. People understand where I'm going with this? And does anybody have a comment on those things?
Paul, go ahead.
I think that's a good idea, Judy, because where does it end if somebody new moves in and decides to, yeah, add another name on?
I think Angela wanted to speak to that.
So I think with that in mind, what I would propose is that any proposed changes to the register be brought forward, and then rather than, it won't go to council until committee has approved it. So it won't go to the March meeting then, and I think it's appropriate to have it ready, and any changes proposed being brought forward for committee to consider. So I would just suggest that those changes be brought forward, and then it can be brought back to committee for consideration.
Could this be put under a working group, possibly, to go over it, review, and recommend any changes to the committee?
It could be brought, it could be, I'm not sure if it's necessary. I would seek, I think that the members of committee can provide input in that regard.
There's lots of questions. All right, Judy.
I think it would be fairly simple to eliminate from the name of each building or property the name that was at one point a current name, and resort only to the historical name for each property, in which case there are only about 4 changes to be made, I think. Removing Blainecroft from Lafreniere House, removing Gadsby from Albert Hill Building, removing Lorenz Westover notation on the Maury McJanet property, and removing Finch House from the Lindsell House property.
So Judy's recommending just having the historical name.
The historical
Just the
name only,
name.
yeah.
Mary, you had something you wanted to add?
I have never seen this list before, so can it be sent out to the committee that we can add to Judy's good list?
Absolutely. It's on the website as well.
Oh, okay, all right, I'll check
Absolutely.
it there.
And we can share that again, right?
And where does the feedback go into then? Angela?
Yes, so I did email it to all members of committee. It is on the website as noted. I think that's how it was, I think it was Glenn who actually commented on how out of date it was from the website. So it is there.
Okay.
But if, I'm happy to email it again if that's of assistance. And yes, so I guess would need direction today as to whether the will of committee is to eliminate those names, or if it's, if there's, anyone else wants to look into it further or review it further and have it brought back to the March meeting.
Okay. Mary, was there anything else you wanted to?
No, I would just prefer that we have that extra month to look at it and give feedback.
Okay, and Randy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can just do it by consensus if we're in agreement with Judy's suggestion, which I think myself I am. I think it makes sense because we don't want to, every time a property changes hands, put a new name there. And it's well identified by the address as well anyway. So there's, you know, if people are confused, well, which house are you talking about? Well, it's 320 Bay Street. So, I don't know. So from if we have like a consensus around the table to suggest to Angela to make that change, I think that's a good one. Obviously change the date at the top of the document too, I guess, because I think it says November 2023 or something. Is that right? So that'll, as of our approval, I guess, or as of council's approval, that'll change, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. But, so, just to clarify, there were no other changes other than removing those de-designated, is that the word? Properties.
The only other change was changing, instead of having a footnote on every page, it moved to the end of the document.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I guess that's the question. Are we in agreement then as a committee that that change that Judy's suggesting makes sense to us? Seems,
Seems we are. Are there any other questions about it? Richard, go ahead.
First, I'm fully in agreement with Councillor Jorgensen's suggestion and Judy's proposal, but do we need a kind of a show of hands to establish whether there is a consensus or not? Or do we, or should we, in other words, wait a month and review it?
We're going to have a resolution.
I'm not sure what the right procedure is.
Looks like we're going to go ahead with the resolution. So, be it resolved that the Municipal Heritage Committee approves the updated information as amended on the municipal register and that it be forwarded to council for adoption. Can I have a mover? Moved by Judy, seconded by Glenn. All in favor? We're going to change the wording and then we'll do it all in favor. The vote should be in front of you.
We're missing one vote.
You can vote in front of you if there's. It's very dark, it's hard to see. Did Richards get through?
Not yet.
Great. All right, so that's been approved. Wonderful. Yep.
So that, for anyone who's interested, then that will go to council for approval on Tuesday, March the 18th at the Committee of the Whole meeting that begins at 3 p.m. There'll be a related report that goes to council as well, and that will be on the website, just for your interest.
Great. The next part on our agenda is Doors Open 2025. Angela's going to speak on that. Great.
Thank you, and I know that there was a bit of discussion about Doors Open already. One of the key pieces is that the fee for it would not come out of the Heritage Committee budget. So it would be it would be paid for, but not through the Heritage Committee budget. But I'll just point out, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the program. I am just passing around past brochures that were used. There is the link to, I think I provided a link to the website just for reference to the Doors Open Ontario website. The last time the town participated was 2018. Prior to that, participation occurred since 2012, I believe. And so the brochures that are being passed around are from 2017 and 2018, the two most recent years, for a one-day event. Just a couple of more points. There's no official program theme for 2025. So in past years, there has been, I think I just off the top of my head, there was, has been military, sports, education. So in this year, there is no theme to try and fit into. Again, the entry fee is not, the committee's not responsible for the entry fee should committee decide to participate. There may be an opportunity to partner with Culture Days to maximize the tourism exposure. And this year, we do have the advantage of having students who can enter information on the provincial website. With that said, a working group would need to be formed. Like all working groups, it can include people who aren't on this committee. Does need to be chaired by a voting member of this committee. The working group would need to establish what buildings or sites would be included, make the appropriate arrangements for those buildings or sites, and find volunteers to potentially manage the site on the day of. There is a requirement by Doors Open Ontario for a minimum of 10 sites. The sites must be of historical, architectural, or cultural significance, with natural heritage sites and heritage gardens being eligible, and entry to the sites must be free, no cost to enter the sites. So I just raise all those points for your consideration and would turn it over to committee for discussion.
When do we need to reach a verdict for that? And when do we need to make a decision? Today?
Ideally, a decision could be made today as a placeholder to keep the lower registration fee. The town has been registered with the province, who understand that that registration may be withdrawn. But because the placeholder occurred before January 31st, it would be the lower fee that would apply if committee decides to proceed. If committee decides not to proceed, the placeholder is withdrawn.
And we need to make the decision today?
Sorry, it has to be confirmed before March 31st. Ideally, it would be today.
Judy?
Sorry.
No worries.
I have some issues perhaps with this. The information that you supplied, Angela, is really helpful because I didn't know what some of the parameters were. I was involved in the last time we did Doors Open, I can recall, actually maybe in both times. But the minimum of 10 sites strikes me as a bit of an issue. The minimum of 10 historic sites in Gravenhurst, including, of course, former townships of Ryde Morrison and Muskoka and so on. You have to have sites that allow people to go into them. And, you know, I'm just not sure what we would come up with in the way of 10 sites that would appropriately reflect our history. Just a thought.
So the thought was to use the walking tour as a basis, and just looking at it in terms of municipally owned or publicly owned sites, it was felt that this would be a starting place, But again, just to reiterate, it is committee's decision and would require work from committee to proceed.
Randy?
Just to be clear, so we'd have to have basically 10 volunteers, or a minimum of 10. It could be more than 10, of course, but for basically a whole day to be interpreters at each site. Is that the concept?
Yes, I would,
So people would have to know something about the place that they're,
I think that's a fair statement. I would go back to the walking tour. There is information available, and I think certainly part of the decision for the sites would be to make sure that there's information available to anybody who wanted to participate. There is the previous brochures. Perhaps, Richard, you could just pass them along. Just to have a look at the material that was previously put together. And as always, I think that further, if anybody needs to know more information, they can be directed to places like the archives.
Glenn?
I'm going to withdraw my request to speak.
Judy?
I was just going to mention, Madam Chairman, that in fact, Madam Chair, sorry, that in fact, a number of the sites that we included indoors open in the past no longer either exist or are not accessible anymore. I mentioned here Scott Hall or Massey Hall at the Ontario Fire College, which is the one that I was at all day long. No one can get there anymore. The Masonic Lodge hall upstairs on the third level of the main street no longer exists. So some of these things that we had in the past, I don't know what we've got now. I would be curious to see a list of 10. Because they should be historic. I mean, we shouldn't be just talking about going to the Legion or something like that. I mean, that's not a historic site per se.
Randy?
I certainly like the concept of it. I think it goes a long way to what, bringing the public, making heritage real for people, bringing them through. I think it's a good project for this committee. But, like Judy, I'm concerned that we would find 10 spots that we can open to the public. But I would be, I think we do have some time, perhaps, Angela, till next meeting to give it some thought and perhaps review that and we can bring it forward and make a decision. But I think that's something, again, we can do with email if people want to perhaps, and it may be, there may be other properties that are not necessarily on that walking tour, but I think it's a type of thing that, I suspect a lot of communities that do participate, does bring, new people into the community to have a look at these things. So, I think I'm in favor in principle, but I just don't know about in practice whether we would be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
I think that's probably Judy's concern too.
Yep.
Glenn?
I just want to point out that this is a huge, huge one-day event. And that, first of all, to find 10 locations that are going to be open, how long, Angela, would they be open for? About 8 hours in a day, or?
I think, I'm not sure if there's parameters through Doors Open Ontario, but I could check on that.
Yeah.
I think that if I recall, I think it was 9 till 5 that,
Okay,
10 till 4, okay.
which is 6 hours, right? A minimum of 6 hours, probably. So from a volunteer standpoint, you'd always have to have 2 volunteers on at any one time. for 3-hour blocks. So if you got 2 for 3-hour blocks, you need 2 times 3 is 6. 6 volunteers for every location for 1 day. That's 60 volunteers who know something about the properties. This is, I mean, we're a small community. This is a huge 1-day project, enormous. And, you know, not unlike the conference that we just went through and had all of the people that were involved in that, but this is a huge thing for 1 day. Finding the 10 properties is one thing, and then staffing them properly is another. Anyways.
Angela was just suggesting too that some of these properties already have staff on them, especially in the walking tours. We might have a look at that. Mary, you had something you wanted to share?
Glenn just stole my words. I've been part of opening doors a couple of times, open doors. It's, finding the spots is not too difficult, but staffing is a big deal. And I've been there as a visitor when I first moved to Gravenhurst and had a wonderful day, but I've also been part of one of these brochures flying around as a worker bee, volunteer. And you got to have your act together with a lot of people with some information beforehand and some training and so on. So I would love to have it in Gravenhurst, but I just warn everybody that it's a big deal.
Judy?
I think one of the problems that we might run into, and that I think we have in the past, is not only having the number of volunteers, but having volunteers who know more about the property than just what's written here. Because when I was at the Ontario Fire College hosting Scott Hall for Doors Open with Hank Smith, we had a number of people come there. In fact, we had 100 people come there. But many of them had information already and wanted more in-depth information, certainly more than would be provided by any of these kinds of little blurbs here. So we had people coming in who had been firefighters and had been at the college, and they wanted more information in depth about how the buildings and so on had come about and whatnot. I having seen some of the incredibly bizarre information that has appeared online recently about some of our historic sites, not through the town, I don't mean, but by on other kinds of public media sites, you've got to be really careful who you have hosting these sites and how much information they actually know about the sites. You just don't want to have somebody who's winging it, so to speak.
Thanks, Judy. So it sounds like most people want to take some time and think about it before we make a decision. Yes? March 31st.
Our next meeting's March 11th.
Our next meeting's March the 11th. So we'll push that to next meeting? Yeah? Great. All right. The next part is our draft 2025 work plan, and that will be, who's speaking to that? Angela.
Thank
Great.
you. I think Haley's pulled it up on the screen. If you don't mind scrolling down a little bit, Haley. So I did send this out in January, as well as the 2024 plan to give some reference as to what the work plan had looked at 2024. So I would note that I do suggest changing the order, and so I've put the legislative function at the beginning, because that's really why this committee's here. It's a function of the Ontario Heritage Act, and there are legislative responsibilities. So I would suggest moving that to the beginning of the work plan. And then there are some other items that are question marks. And so I'm not sure if you want to go through it, or if perhaps committee, if there's any questions, I think you can see where I've put some question marks. The work plan will determine the working groups, and I think at this point would turn it over to committee if that's satisfactory.
Great. Did everybody get a chance to have a look at it that she sent out? Were there any questions? I think we'll probably go line by line. All right. So we'll start at the top. As Angela said, she's put the Ontario Heritage Act at the top. So our objective number 1 is to advise council, provide advice to council regarding potential alterations or demolition on designated properties and potential demolition on listed properties, as well as any other heritage-related matters. Great. If there's any questions or concerns, just let me know. I'll just keep reading. Oh, Judy?
Have we ever been asked as a Municipal Heritage Committee to comment or provide advice about any potential demolitions or any alterations to listed buildings? I don't recall in the years that I've been here having been asked about any of those.
Thank you, through you. Not since I've been here, which is 2018. I'm not sure prior to that. I do get asked by coworkers and in the building department if properties are on the register, and none of the properties that are currently on the register have I been asked about a demolition permit. Through you again. The one property that did have alterations was the Albion, but it wasn't to any of the anything that was identified as having a heritage attribute.
Any other questions for Angela about that? Good, okay. Second section, do you want me to keep reading them?
Sorry,
Yep. Yep. We're gonna go line by line, if that's all right? Yeah, see if there's,
Under the designation of properties? Or are we doing each?
I was gonna read each one, is that all right? Yeah.
Sorry, okay.
No worries. Municipal register update is needed, provide details to Ontario Heritage Trust. Questions, changes? No? Great. Next one, designation of properties. Subject to staff and committee obligations, prepare material for council to designate listed properties to meet Bill 23 timelines. Randy?
Thanks. This is the one, I think we can scratch the to meet Bill 23 timelines. It's just what we do regardless, right?
Great.
I would think.
Yep.
No matter, and again, that could change any time. And in fact, they have changed, right? So, but I don't think we have to be specific to that. Anyway. So if we just scratch the to meet Bill 20.
Angela's taking the notes and then.
Wonderful. Great. So it's suggested that we scratch the Bill 23 timelines. Any other for that section? Nope. Great. Committee education. Stay apprised of changing provincial legislation, participate in available training opportunities, including Indigenous training. Anyone? No? Okay. We're going to go on to subsection promotional programs. So plaquing and ceremonies, where it says investigate plaquing for. What was the questions marks? Because before we had Archie Sloan, correct? So with that, maybe, Angela, we put the signage group would go in there. So investigate plaquing and signage recommended by signage committee.
Thank you. So just to jump ahead a little bit, there's also the interpretive signs further down in that category. You're quite correct. Previously, in last year's work plan, there was specific projects that were identified there. So we can leave it at, you can leave it at investigate placking if that's something that committee would like to do, or you can incorporate it into the interpretive signs line. So it was just sort of carrying forward if there's any property in particular that committee had an interest in proceeding with this year, or again, it could be left at just investigate placking.
Randy?
I think we can scratch this one and include it in the, interpretive signs, if you want to say interpretive signs and placking, but we're getting away from the placking wording. We were talking about this earlier, so I think that's all encompassing in
Perhaps signage?
signage. No, that's- yeah, It's
Signage.
not just interpretive signs, but it's also, if we just change that to signage. Because that encompasses, informational signs, the placking, everything that the committee would be.
So we'll put that with
Looking at-
the section that says interpretive signs, working group to work with Gravenhurst Archives and Town of Gravenhurst Economic Development, Marketing and Tourism Division to begin implementation of heritage sign program.
And I think we should change the name on the first column too, from interpretive signs to just signage program.
Yeah. And then we'll squish those together. That's a great idea. Okay, so that will change. The next section is doors open. And we've already decided that we're going to defer that to next meeting. Yes?
So, sorry, just thinking this through, potentially that item could say, consider forming a working group to prepare or to participate in 2025? And then it's more open? Okay, it's not closing the door, pardon the pun, but it's, okay. I'll
Change the word.
I'll change that wording. Investigate, okay.
Great. The next section is ongoing promotion and website updates. Ongoing promotion in the form of updates to brochures, heritage designation guide, rack cards, the town's website, articles, and working with partner organizations. I see that you've changed it from newspaper to just articles. Okay. Yep. All right, next one, Built Heritage Awards. So it says review criteria and question marks. Go ahead, Angela.
Thank you. There was some discussion at the last meeting about the criteria, so I just put that in there as a question mark to see if there was a desire to review that criteria. Again, just based on that discussion at the last meeting.
I think that's a great idea with new members joining the Built Heritage Award group, that they should review the criteria. Okay, so review criteria, working group to review and recommend eligible buildings, awards to be distributed summer 2025. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Paul?
Yeah, we found that criteria to be very nebulous and sort of, it's what your opinion was more than any criteria that we were actually really following. I personally find it hard to give a heritage award to something that's new, even if it's built to look old. I mean, putting aluminum siding or vinyl siding on over top of wood, or instead of a wood siding house, that was a hard decision for me to come to.
You're still recommending that you want the new members to review the criteria, though? Yeah? Okay. Randy?
So could I suggest we just change that to working group to review the criteria and recommend eligible buildings?
That's excellent, yeah. Any other questions for that section? Okay, community activities, lead walking tours, including Gravenhurst Winter Carnival. Could we change that to maybe being available for community activities? Example, lead walking tours at town events. Not saying specific events, but perhaps being, if the town or someone calls on our committee, that there could be someone available that can volunteer for those events. Whether it's holding a table, whether it's going, whatever is needed. Is that all right? I think so. I don't know what others think. It says she's changed it to being available to lead walking tours, including town events. Did someone want something a little bit different? Judy?
Perhaps we could say, rather than specifically saying walking tours, which could be an example, maybe just that we would be available for town events as a heritage committee, that members would be available, or a member would be available. For example, leading a walking tour. That way, it could be that somebody would just be there for, just there to provide some advice or provide some info or whatever.
Great. Thank you. Anything else for that section? Nope. Okay. The next section is interpretive signs. Working group to work with Gravenhurst Archives. Oh, we already read this one. We've put them together. Great. We'll move on to the next. Recognize people contributing to heritage. So it says consider options for 2025. Randy?
I was going to defer to Judy.
All right, Judy and Randy.
I looked at that and I thought, what on earth are we talking about here? How do you recognize people who are contributing to heritage? I can see that you might want to recognize people who are, I don't even know if you can do that, promoting heritage. I don't know. I just like it completely.
Angela wants to speak on that.
Thank you, through you. So this is a carryover from previous work plans, and the example that I would give is the Lieutenant Governor Award that was given to Mr. and Mrs. Fry, and that would be what that's referencing.
Is it the wording that you would like changed, Judy? Thinking? Carol Ann?
I would just like to add that I personally was disappointed that when the Fries, both of them, won from the Governor General, that, to my understanding, nothing else was done within Gravenhurst. Was there a celebratory signage that the ordinary citizen of Gravenhurst would recognize that this couple had spent most of their married Gravenhurst life contributing to heritage? And to my understanding, there really wasn't very much. So when we say recognizing, I think we need to stand by the words we use and be careful of the words we use, because there hasn't been another couple who have been so outstanding, and both those people have now died, so you can't do that now. But still, in all, I think it's important that our town be proud of our citizens, and they don't have to always win a prize. That's it. Thank you.
So maybe some criteria on what that might be. Judy wanted to speak to that.
I was just going to mention that there was an event held to honor Cyril and Marion Fry for their contribution to heritage, and it was held in conjunction with the awarding by the Lieutenant Governor of that Heritage Award. So there was a get-together of about, I don't know. Actually, there were two, come to think of it. There was one at the Opera House, and there was one down at Grayson Speed.
Just to note that, yes, they were honored there, but only by a few known friends. What I'm trying to emphasize is that the town, I think the town missed an opportunity. That's my point. The town itself, not someone hosting a luncheon or whatever. We could have done much more, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'll let Judy weigh in, but at the time, it was certainly my understanding that Mr. and Mrs. Fry were relatively private people who were not who did not want additional attention, and the town was made very aware of that. At the time, it was Mayor Kelly. He certainly made mention of it during council, but it was made very clear to the town that those particular people did not seek any additional attention in that matter.
Randy?
So just moving from the specifics of that to the back to the work plan, do we want to keep this item in or change the wording of it? Because I think, consider options for 2025. I think, again, that's pretty open-ended, but we don't know what's going to come our way that way. But do we, or do we want to be proactive and seek out people, awards notwithstanding, I guess, but
Richard, do you have a suggestion?
Madam Chair, I'm a little bit bothered by this item as well, because I had the feeling, so to speak, that there may be all kinds of people in town who feel, oh, damn, I should be acknowledged or something like that, and their noses will be out of joint if they aren't. And to me, it's kind of like opening a can of worms somehow. I mean, I'm not saying this necessarily a bad idea, but it makes me uneasy, for what that's worth.
Thank you. Judy?
I think I would quibble a bit with recognize people contributing to heritage. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe to heritage recognition or to, there's something wrong there with people contributing to heritage per se, I think.
I'm wondering if we had suggested that the Properties of Interest group was going to change their name to Recognizing Heritage.
That's right.
So perhaps that group could take on heritage as a whole, whether it's people, places of significance, and maybe we remove that section altogether and just put it under a different umbrella of recognition of heritage. Richard?
Madam Chair, possibly it should be more. It should be worded more about people contributing to heritage awareness rather than heritage per se. I mean, the heritage is there, although people may not be aware of it, and some people have done an awful lot to try to increase awareness of it. Now, I don't know if that would improve it in any way.
Wonderful. Any other suggestions? Angela?
So, thank you. Just seeking clarification or needing clarification whether committee wants to just assume that that's bundled in to the interpretive signage item, to remove that item, or to reword it. Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, I would question whether this is even us as a heritage committee. maybe this is above us. This is not us as what we're doing.
So you'd like to remove it?
Yes, I would like to remove it.
Suggestion? Okay. Everybody in agreement to remove it? Yep, okay, so we'll remove that section. Yep, go to the next one. Where am I now? Okay, properties of interest. The property, this is under survey, inventory, research, and document, properties of interest, working group to continue to review and evaluate properties. Okay. Sorry? Angela?
Just, thank you. Just based on the report for the Properties of Interest group, I'm not sure if the wording of this is, if it's the will of committee to change this, based on the report from Glenn, to have this as, if the Heritage Recognition Working Group, if it fits here, or how committee feels about that.
So what Angela's asking is if we change it from properties of interest to heritage recognition. Judy?
This is the place where we, excuse me, where we introduce a motion to change the name. Maybe we don't even need a motion. No, just changing the name of the Properties of Interest Group to Heritage Recognition Group would then cover what that group is going to be doing.
Yep, so that will be in that section under properties of interest. We'll just change it to Heritage Recognition Working Group
yep.
to continue to review and evaluate properties. Great. Next piece, continue to update heritage inventory. There's 300 plus buildings in inventory, more to be added as they are discovered. Judy.
Sorry, I'm asking again. Where is the inventory? Where's the list of 300 buildings? I've never seen it.
Thank you.
Angela?
This is a list that Colin was the, Mr. Old, who's a previous Heritage Committee member, was the primary keeper, author of, and I do have it, and I tried to search it the other day looking for something, and it was a little bit difficult. So it may be something that is worth a committee member or a few committee members having a look at and maybe reevaluating. But that's what it's referring to.
Judy?
What would be the purpose of that list of 300 buildings in an inventory? Why would we have a list like that? What would we do with it?
Angela?
Thank you. So I think that this list was developed prior to me in this role. I think that from what I can glean, the idea was that every property with heritage or historic value can't be included on the register. So it was just a list of properties that did have some heritage value. Of course, it has no status. There's no legal status. It's just really, as it says, an inventory.
And what format is that in?
Excel.
Okay. Judy, did you have any other? No, I'm willing. Great. So we'll leave that as is? Yeah. Okay. Angela?
Thanks. I would just point out that as with all items on the working group, or excuse me, on the work plan, having the item on the working plan doesn't mean there's an obligation to work on it. It's here as a placeholder. Again, the work plan is committee's map for the year, and so if something isn't on this work plan, really it's, then it becomes beyond the role of the committee. So having it here doesn't mean there's an obligation to work on it. So I would just add that as a point of clarification.
Thank you. Any other questions for Angela about that? Okay. The next section is mapping of heritage properties. Continue to update available mapping. Collect GPS coordinates through heritage inventory. Work with planning technician to map this data. And I know there was a question about where is this mapping located?
Thank you. So there is, so the mapping that's available now is on the town's website, and it is the mapping of all the properties on the register, so the listed and designated properties. It does need to be updated, again, through the update of the register, but that mapping is currently available.
Is this a spot where we could put clickable links on this mapping for people to go and learn more about each of those sites, Angela?
Based on my understanding, yes. I wouldn't, I certainly don't have that ability, but I believe that's correct.
Great. Any questions for Angela about that? Judy?
Do we know what that map is called? If I went to the town website, what would I look for? Like a heritage map or? Because when I went to the town website and looked for heritage, I got parking lots among other things, so, you know,
Angela?
just confused.
So it's called the Municipal Register Map. Should come up if that's searched.
Haley's going to pull it up for us. Great. We're going to have a look.
In 2,947 people looked at it.
That's great. Judy, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that your average tourist would never think of going to the Municipal Heritage Committee part of a site in order to find heritage buildings. I mean, I don't think, most people don't even know about municipal heritage committees. And if a tourist is coming into Gravenhurst and wants to access a map with some heritage properties on it, they wouldn't think of Municipal Heritage Committee as a place to go.
So that's a great thing that we can put with that working group to make a suggestion
Yep.
to the town to maybe reorganize a little bit so that it's easier to locate, because this is great. The map, I
It's a
didn't
great
even know
map,
that
yep.
was there, so that's amazing. And then we can maybe coordinate to be able to click on those and learn a little bit more about, if you click on it, does it pull up, oh, look, a picture and information, that's fantastic. Randy?
I'm just going to say there is a history and heritage page aside from our committee's page on the town's website, and it may be just a matter of putting a link to that map on this page as well. Simple as that.
It's very simple. This is great.
Because that is, if you go to the, our town page and under tourism, culture and recreation, there is an arts, culture and heritage page. So rather than doing a search, going through the menu, you quickly you can jump to history and heritage. So we should make sure, we should all have a look at that page, I think, and make sure that it's got what we think are relevant
yeah.
links on it.
So we could put that into the working plan for each of the groups to review the town website.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
we already have an item for that, so.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's great.
And I think,
Speak to that quickly, sorry. As I said earlier, just so you're aware, each page is assigned to a different department. So if you're reading it from Culture and Recreation, then we would just need to speak to the Director of Culture and Recreation. Every department has their own pages. We can't just change things on someone's page. We can definitely have a meeting and talk to them and provide them with the most up-to-date information.
Fantastic. Love that. Can we have a look at the work plan? Fantastic. So we finished mapping of heritage properties. Do we want to add in there something about updating website, updating available mapping, or is that sort of in there already?
I think we covered that under another item.
Did we? Oh, promotion, fantastic. Great, so that's covered. All right, so Muskoka built, so work with ACO, Muskoka branch, to include register information on their digital Muskoka built platform. Good? Yep, great. All right, next section, review. Oh, sorry, Judy. No worries.
A question for Angela. Was that information, that register, submitted to ACO to put on their website? Because we've talked about that before.
Angela?
Thank you. So certainly they're aware of the municipal register that's on the town's website. ACO Muskoka is, you may recall that they did a presentation to this committee, I want to say last May, if I'm not mistaken, and they're really asking for committee's assistance in updating in providing information on properties that should be on that Muskoka Built platform. So they don't have the people to do those kind of entries. That's why they came to committee, was asking for really a partnership with committee to do that entry work.
Thanks.
We did provide them with the properties of interest list, right? Angela?
Thank you. They have access to the register, and I've not been on this website recently. The last time I looked, there's a variety of properties from Gravenhurst on it. Again, just I know that, or I believe that Colin Old had been doing some entries, but their ask is really for committee members to input that information.
Randy?
Thanks. I was just going to suggest maybe we should consider having somebody designated as a liaison person, since we're joining ACO every year. Might be a good, just have somebody who, and it doesn't have to be a committee member. I think it could be, associate member. It's not just somebody to speak to them and see what they need this week or this month or that type of thing.
Colin did request the register and to find the most updated information recently, I think about a month or
So-
two ago. He's been currently adding everything. I'm not sure if he's got the new one yet because we were making changes, but there has been inquiries about getting.
So
the new
Colin
one
is
first.
working on?
I'm not recommending
you
that.
don't- No,
any other
no,
department- Yeah,
is Colin,
he's currently working.
is he, he's not an associate member or anything anymore? Is he?
Members of the public can also add information.
Yeah, so, well, but I still think, we should have kind of an official liaison.
So would you like to change that to say have, put some,
No, I think that's part of working with the ACO Muskoka branch. I think
Okay.
just a suggestion to how we could work with the
How we
ACO
could do
Muskoka
that.
branch. So,
Judy?
Just wondered whether or not Caroline is still a member of ACO. You are? Yeah, I thought so.
She's not jumping up.
No, but she did nod.
Oh, she nodded.
She nodded.
So Caroline might volunteer for that. Fantastic. Sounds great.
We'll
you,
we'll
Judy.
stay tuned for that.
Yeah,
Stay tuned. All right, the next section is review of culturally significant schools and churches. Research and evaluate ways of protecting and promoting the preservation of schools and churches that have cultural heritage value. Judy.
Before I even press my button, she reads my mind.
I knew it was coming, yeah. I have a real problem with it. Can you press your button?
Push my button. Madam Chair, I have a problem with this one. We certainly would need criteria for what a culturally significant school or church is. But on top of that, I'm just not sure why this is a separate item and why. Yeah, I suggest we scratch it too. It's part of what we do when we're looking at important buildings in the community. But to determine that this church is culturally significant and that church isn't would, to my mind, be violently reprehensible. And I just think getting rid of the whole item would be a really good idea.
Angela wants to speak to that.
Thank you. I would just offer the insight that this has been on the work plan since prior to myself preparing work plans. So it's really just a carry forward. I'm not aware of any work being done on this particular item since I've worked here, and again, that's since the beginning of 2018. So if it's committee's will, we can, or I can simply remove that from the work plan.
So it sounds like people are thinking that it's just, it's part of buildings of what we already do, so we don't need to specifically state significant schools and churches. So we'll just lump that in with heritage buildings. Great. Anyone else? No? On to the next section, municipal review. So there's zoning bylaw, review and comment on proposed changes to comprehensive zoning bylaw, comment on site-specific planning applications when appropriate. Randy?
Thanks, through you. I think that's an important function. I'm just curious how it works. Do we, I mean, presumably staff might bring these things to our attention from time to time?
Angela?
Thank you.
Rather than review every
Yeah, thank you.
single application.
So the way it has worked is that the chair of the committee is emailed the notice for applications in certain areas. So for example, in the, any applications in the that are within downtown. There's specific geographic boundaries, but downtown on Bay Street, there's specific areas where the chair is emailed that. We can change that process to email to all members, or but that's how the process has worked historically.
Andy?
Thank you, sorry. So that's just as part of the normal circulation of applications, because, I mean, it can be onerous to get every application. But it's only
Angela?
Thank you.
specific.
That's correct. It's only on specific applications, and I can tell you that there are applications where I am asked, should this be emailed to the chair of the Heritage Committee? And I've looked at it and said, no. I've taken that liberty of determining that it would not be something that the Heritage Committee would be interested in based on my knowledge of the property.
Randy?
May again, would that include you know, a nearby application that might have an effect on a designated property of some kind.
Angela?
Not necessarily. So certainly, again, this is something, this item there can be further discussion on how that's dealt with. But I think it's important that this item remain in the work plan.
Any other questions? Great. And that last little section, official plan. Oh, sorry, Randy?
Official plan review, when's that happening?
2026. So it's a bit preliminary, but at that time, there may be more detailed or further input sought from the Heritage Committee.
Great, so the official plan review and comment on official plan policies. And that is it for the working plan. All right. Yes. We'll have a motion. We're going to make a motion that the 2025 Municipal Heritage Committee, 2025. Change that. That the Municipal Heritage Committee 2025 work plan be approved and forwarded to council for adoption. Can I have someone motion that? Mover. Paul? Seconded by Glenn? And all in favor, vote. Richard, did you have something you wanted to share? No, we just pressed the button. Okay.
I'm just going to say when it was going to council.
Oh, perfect. It's going to go to council. Angela's going to comment on that.
Just for anyone who's interested, this will then go to council with a related report on that same date, Tuesday, March the 18th. And Councillor Jorgensen will address any questions that council may have at that time.
Great. So motion carried. Great. All right. Our next item on the agenda is correspondence. We have any? No, Angela's going to speak to that.
So as committee members are probably aware, anytime that I receive any heritage-related correspondence, I forward it on. Sometimes perhaps forward too much into your mailbox, but I do forward it. So that's typically why there's no, the only time there would be correspondence is if there was something that needed further, that warranted further discussion. So just wanted to clarify that. And the only other point that I had on correspondence was I did distribute it, but there is Wednesday, March the 5th is Heritage Action Day as described in the ACO email of January 2nd. So just point that out.
Randy?
Thanks. Just to follow up on that, so the process too, if Angela forwards us something and it would be up to any of us to bring it forward if we wanted to see that on the agenda and discuss it, if there was something that came out of that correspondence. So I think that's an important thing to point out, that, you know, just because it's sent to you, if you want to deal with it further or implement what the item's about or anything like that, make sure we get it on the agenda.
Yeah, and Angela's great, sends out the agenda early, so if there's any changes, you need to let her know by that closing. Oh, is it Haley? Yeah. Well, it's Haley. It's lovely. They come out, they're great, and you can see them ahead of time, so if you have any changes or things you want added on there, you can do so. Just wonderful. All right, no more correspondence? There are no other items? All right, so I'm going to move that the Municipal Heritage Committee meeting held on February 18th, 2025 be adjourned. Can I have a mover? Glenn, a seconder? Richard? All in favor, you can vote.
Missing 2 votes.
Be able to vote?
Okay, no, not you, just we're missing 2 votes. It doesn't, one more vote.
Great. All in favor was carried. We're adjourned. Thank you.